You may have contributed to or been a beneficiary of a charitable organization targeted at a chosen cause. With an influx of foundations as a preferred vessel for charitable causes, our Law Express team shall assist you to better understand this nomenclature. Stick with us as we discuss foundations. My name is Nwela Seidu, and you just tuned into Law Express.
Theodore Kweku Albright is a private legal practitioner who loves cooking, travel, and has a deep appreciation for music and art. Kwabna Frimpong Mensah is a private legal practitioner who enjoys reading and watching football in his downtime. Nwela Seidu. She's a private legal practitioner and a consistent member of our 3-lawyer panel on the show every week. She also doubles as the host of the show. She likes to play tennis and read.
To kickstart our conversation on foundations, we need to know what a foundation is. And a foundation is basically any organization or body with some endowments, where an endowment would mean a sum of money or literally a pot of cash that provides financial support for some cause. It may be an educational cause, maybe a charitable cause, maybe to fund research. But that does not take away the fact that there can also be foundations which are created for wealth purposes, to hold property in trust for some future beneficiaries. And so that is basically what a foundation is, for easier. In our jurisdiction, they are most commonly referred to as non-profits or non-governmental organizations. We've had so many over the years which have been providing support to various worthy causes within our country. And so with that should be like the background with which we start this conversation, that we are going to be talking about what we know or what we refer to as non-profits or non-governmental organizations.
We all know that foundations could be public or private.
Yeah.
In terms of participation, in terms of who even benefits, and in terms of who is sponsoring the activities of that entity.
Yeah.
So you want to set up a foundation. I mean, I know you want to talk about a bit about how they could be non-profit or for-profit.
Yeah. So in Ghana particularly, they're used as a vehicle for charitable purposes, or we traditionally call them NGOs. But in other jurisdictions, they're used for more sophisticated means as wealth conservation, preservation vehicles. And Ghana, the NGO foundation type that we have here, I would say it's quite difficult because we don't have the sophistication, and the framework does not allow it to be a wealth enhancing or preservation vehicle. It means that for the most part, I'd say 100% of foundations are used for charitable objectives. And typically they would be alleviation of poverty, healthcare, youth education, and so on. Those would be the objects of the NGO foundation charity.
Foundations normally come up sometimes in honor of people who have died. So you have this very well-loved family member who dies under certain conditions or under a very bad situation, mostly from an avoidable incident. So you set out to save other people's lives so they don't also go through that situation. So probably if it's a road accident, you might set up a foundation in honor of your beloved to help educate people on ways to avoid that kind of road accident. If the person was passionate about one particular aspect of life, be it education, whatever it is, you set up that foundation in honor of the person to that end.
Yeah.
And normally you have a lot of people now calling on other people who buy into the idea one, and also people who cared about the deceased to donate to that foundation to be able to achieve its aims.
Yeah.
So this is how it normally comes. Another way is somebody in a public space who decides that beyond whatever they do, they want to engage in charity. They tend to create foundations. So you hear of all the big names with foundations attached. And the question is, are they really built as foundations, or they're just there in name?
Truth be told, when you look at, for example, if I can use the Gates Foundation, and Bill Gates has come up to say that about 80% of his wealth will be spent within the next 20 years through philanthropy. And he's using that for medical care, poverty alleviation, and so on and so forth. You've got somebody like Warren Buffett, who at one time was the world's richest man, who has promised to give up to about 90% of his wealth away for charitable causes. And they do that for to leave a legacy, have impact, maybe purpose, have significance. And often you want to live after, life after life, live after death. And so this is one way of perpetuating your memory.
So your name keeps coming up.
Your name keeps coming up.
You keep doing good way after.
Way after.
Dead.
You've got the Rockefeller Foundation, and you've got other foundations, that Carnegie Foundation, and they do exactly that. They give out significant funds.
To add to that, is that another way where you directly still control your charity from the grave? Because once it's a foundation, assuming you were there when it was set up, you could make suggestions as to how this wealth should be given out. So indirectly, it's like a backdoor will.
Well, yes, but they don't have to do it. I mean, you've got $100 billion. You can spend it on yourself or give it to your children. But for one reason or another, often they want to make a difference. For anybody who has had the opportunity to access some of the funding from either the MasterCard or Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the regime is very strict. Accountability is very high. They don't give away free money. And that is to denote the fact that they got the money by hard work and are not going to give it away and have it frittered away. So yes, there's a lot of control either from the grave or while alive on the foundation.
First and foremost, the most important thing to remember there is that a foundation, irrespective, will always be a company.
Yeah.
It will always have an object. And so the object of the company always exists even after the passage of its members, or even when there's a change in whoever controls the company. There's an object for which the company was incorporated, which it has to follow.
Yeah.
And so if it is your wish that there should be always enough funding to go towards cancer research, then of course the foundation is going to do that whether or not you are alive. Yeah. Because that is the object for which it was incorporated, to make sure that there's always funding available for the people who are looking into cures for cancer or any other kind of disease that is out there. So it is not as much as a will, but it is, given that the company will forever be in existence till it is wound up.
Yeah.
By whichever purpose of winding up, either if it's a trust, which is acting as a foundation, whether the trust deed, as my colleague explained, either the trust deed, the period for the trust deed is up, for which it must suffer its normal termination, or if it's a company that's after making sure it has no liabilities, is properly wound up, then that is when the foundation comes to an end and its object comes to an end.
Yeah. For those foundations which are set up with the purpose of preserving wealth, often you have a founder who sets up the foundation. In our case, the typical jurisdiction is normally offshore. So if I can mention, somewhere like Mauritius, Guernsey, Jersey, Cayman Islands, etc., with a view that apart from the founder, who could be described as the main shareholder, that you would have a constitution which directs how the wealth should be kept and used. And then you will have directors who will be maybe family members to address how the foundation is operated over the course of time. Unlike the trusts, of course, which dies after a certain period unless it's a perpetual trust, the foundation is very, very much like a company and can exist in perpetuity. But it's a wonderful vehicle for preserving wealth, conserving wealth, for compounding wealth over several generations, for mitigating tax, for confidentiality, for privacy, and so on. So, but these are foundations which we don't find in our jurisdiction. And to make mention of the trust law, yes, we do have a trust law, which is, I would say, pretty much moribund. It's neither here nor there. So for the most part, people have to look outside of the jurisdiction to appropriate other laws and use that as a guide. Nevertheless, if you're keen on a trust, as opposed to a foundation, you can incorporate that into your will, And of course, you can also incorporate a foundation. You give instructions to your executors, or that they must set up a foundation on your behalf with the residue of your estate to do A, B, and C.
It's time to go for a quick commercial break.
Okay.
When we come back, we would look at the pros and cons proper. We already, sadly, have discussed the advantages.
Yeah.
We haven't looked at the disadvantages yet, but we could rehash the advantages briefly before we touch on the disadvantages.
Okay.
Stay tuned. This is Law Express. Don't go away.
Yeah, so we're talking about the pros and cons.
Yes.
And my question is, these NGOs, charities, foundations, Ghanaian ones, are given the opportunity to have the benefit of tax exemptions because there's a perceived public benefit to be derived. What happens when they are hijacked and used as tools or vehicles for mass wealth making and wealth acquisition without the needed benefit that should be derived from the tax exemptions? And I think that at this point, or at some point, we need to scrutinize the NGOs, the foundations.
I think I have seen entities change their very nature by virtue of the fact that they've become profit-making entities.
Yeah.
They started off as non-profits, but over time, because of the kind of business they've engaged in and the new areas they've innovated into, they automatically start paying taxes because the law would require that.
True.
Sometimes it's the state that starts to ask the questions, and then based on conversations with them and directives, they end up having to convert the nature. So they move from a non-profit to a for-profit.
But for the majority of religious institutions, and I'll not name them, when I look at them personally, I just see a real estate play.
Okay.
Yeah.
How so?
Who owns the landed property? How is that audited? How is that transferred from generation to generation?
No, but once the landed property belongs to that charity, the church, and they are not renting it out, then I do not see the for-profit arrangement there.
Well, there
it's
isn't
different where they set up maybe apartments
No.
and start to rent them out.
That's too obvious. That's too in your face. How does the wealth that has been accumulated or compounded in the real estate of these churches, how does that transfer from generation to generation?
Of course, that will be in the institution's constitution at the time of their registration. And most churches would have a board of trustees. They would have arrangements and they serve terms. And this board keep changing.
Except that, yes, it'll be in the constitution, but these, my perception is that these are run as family businesses and not as charities. Charities are just
probably
as
the churches you're familiar with, but those that I know, they have a whole arrangement where they have non-family members of the founders participating in the running of the churches, and they have a whole succession plan where leadership changes every few years. The property is vested in the board of trustees at every given point, and then they keep moving it around like that.
It depends on also the kind of foundation it is, because not all foundations are for just charitable purposes. Like we're looking at those stated for religious purposes, where your main aim is the dissemination of the gospel or whichever faith to which you profess to be with. You are in a certain you're in a different box when it comes to that, in as much as you are a foundation like all others, but you are not purposely to give out physical aid to something. Faith-based spiritual aid, and that is not something you
which is ephemeral.
Which is not something you
still has value.
You can
so much
quantify.
value.
It's not tangible.
It's not something you can quantify.
And that's why it could be more valuable
as you would
than
with
actual
cash,
because it's not
with the charitable one. But he raises an interesting point. Where do we draw the line with foundations of such nature? And that always comes to the regulator. That's why we have the NPO now. And so you as your foundation who you've registered with the NPO, that's the Non-Profit Organization Secretariat, are you being regulated? Are you filing your returns? Because first and foremost, you are a company. Are you filing your returns? If you don't, is the regulator, that's the Office of the Registrar of Companies, applying the penalty for not filing your returns
and
on
barring
time?
you from certain tax exemptions.
Barring you from certain tax exemptions. When you apply for, and another misconception is that the tax exemption is automatic. It's not. You apply through the Secretariat. When you're importing, you apply through the Secretariat for tax exemption, and then they go to GRA. When you need other forms of tax exemptions, you go to the Ghana Revenue Authority, you apply yourself as an NGO. And so the creation of an NGO does not mean you are automatically exempt from paying tax. If you employ people and they are being paid salaries, you still pay your pay as you earn.
Very true.
The law requires you to register them
when
with...
you buy things, you still pay VAT.
You pay. The law requires you to register with SNIT and then pay pensions towards these people who are being employed in your foundation and working. So it does not just mean that as soon as you are an NGO, you pay no tax to the state. You pay no tax in performance of your objects. But for every other activity, and it also does not mean you cannot partake in commercial activities. But the caveat here is that everything garnered from your commercial activity must go straight into the object. So you can have foundations that have very impressive investment portfolios, which give impressive returns. However, every single return must be channeled to that specific object, never for profits. As at the end of the day, your balance sheet must read 00.
Yeah, but your balance sheet is 00. I accept that. But from where I sit, it means that those who are employed and sit at the top of the food chain can buy themselves luxury homes, luxury cars, and have a wonderful lifestyle, all in the aid of salaries and remuneration. Do you see what I mean? So I think regulation needs to go up a notch.
Well, you would realize that most non-profits really pay their staff well. Because the understanding is that they go all out. And
that's not my experience at all.
To help people.
No. That's not my experience at all. When I see non-profits paying their staff well, it is excuse me to say, foreign non-profits who have established here, who are governed by external laws. But otherwise, in the main, that's not what I see. What I see is ham-fisted animal farm type structures right at the top.
You are not being charitable to the charity.
No. I mean, that's why we're having this conversation. I mean, I see people sitting at the top and people sitting at bottom, and people at the bottom doing, propagating the gospel, proselytizing, and not even getting 20 cedis for data, 20 cedis to make calls, 20 cedis for transport. And yet, right at the top of the food chain, the hierarchy, you see luxury apartments, luxury cars, huge 4x4s, etc., etc. And that is the reality that I see. Maybe you see it differently, but this is the reality. And this is what I've seen from engagement, actual engagement. So I come back to the question, how do we ensure that the real estate play, some of the churches in Ghana have the largest real estate play in the country. No lie. All right? How do we ensure that we optimize and maximize the charitable objects, and it's not just a cover for making wealth and transferring that wealth by creating bishops who are the children of the person who established the church in perpetuity. Thank you.
You said your piece.
Yes, I have.
Can we now move on to the other pros?
Yeah.
We talked about tax benefits.
Yes.
We let's look at reputation. It's intangible.
Yes, it is. I mean, a good name is supposed to be better than riches.
Yes.
Not in Ghana. Goodness me. Look, let's not beat about the bush, huh? If you want to know where a nation or a people are going, look at their culture and look at their values. Right across the world, no longer is a good name worth more than riches. So if you tell me that, I would say, brother, where? Brother, where? You know, the moment you acquire the wealth, give yourself a day or two, and you can cover up any bad name you had because you have followers. So yes, the good book says a good name is better than riches, but the reality now today is that the moment you acquire the wealth, all your sins are forgiven, are washed away and are forgiven.
You become new.
Oh, you are born again.
Let's still talk about reputation and
Yes,
what it can do for a family where they run a foundation. You already mentioned the example of Bill and Melinda Gates.
Yes, indeed.
And
the MasterCard Foundation.
Their foundation has pushed the Gates family very far.
Yes.
And that is the reason why some people set up a foundation as against perhaps any other entity to donate and be charitable to society.
I think the greatest the greatest benefits we would always get from these foundations, it's always in the intangibles.
Yeah.
You see, we can use the Gates Foundation as a prime example. The amount of money that has gone into research and the discoveries that have been made from this research is some of the things that have put us in a safer place vaccine-wise.
Yeah.
And it's auspicious that we are having this conversation when not too long ago the leaders of the developed world were in Zurich to have the GAVI meeting concerning vaccine health and vaccine distribution to especially the impoverished, of which unfortunately Sub-Saharan Africa is the greatest victim. So this is an example of what a foundation can do for the world in real time.
Yeah.
So whereas you would have waited for the benevolence of another nation, more developed and richer, these are individual families who can still make an impact on the lives of nations by virtue of just their goodwill.
Goodwill, yes,
Yeah.
goodwill. I mean, the foundation's work, especially during COVID, vaccine health and vaccine access, and the continuous research
and
they
PPEs, distribution.
PPE distribution. So the advantage of having such organizations in existence is always in the intangibles. Once they are regulated properly and are actually doing the function for which they were created, and they're not becoming wealth and asset storage vehicles. So that is the main benefit. Sometimes, I mean, there are some disadvantages
as well
of having a foundation. The first one would be the rigidity in your performance. You know, you're so limited to what you can do activities-wise, whereas maybe you may have been able to venture into some other field which is also lacking of also such importance, but your object. And then going through the hassle of amending your objects now to include this, and then whatever follows of it, it's quite a deterrent. Imagine being somebody focused on preventing bilharzia. I wonder if we still do have that, but then that's what's
river blindness.
That's what you're looking at, and then for some, by good fortune, it's been eradicated.
Now what?
Now what?
You take care of the post-bilharzia world effects.
You see, in some nations, they have eradicated polio. So all the foundations that were set up for polio eradication, what happens next?
You research into post-polio movement.
You see, so that's the rigidity. And another big disadvantage we don't talk about enough is transparency. And I think that's what Mr. Albright has been hitting on for...
Not too subtly,
but has
very transparently.
Getting to who actually owns and who actually runs what, and how it operates. The transparency model. You know, with limited liability companies which are for profit, some are listed, some aren't listed, but even with those that aren't listed, members have access to information, the audited books, the registry of members, etc. But for a foundation, sometimes it can be a bit
tricky
on the secrecy side, because even the member, the actual member, is also another trust, which is so sometimes it has that. So the access to the information sometimes is what has been the problem.
Okay, so in the UK, if I can use the UK, they have the Charities Commission, and you only have to go online, type in, and on the Charities Commission's page, and you get access to everything about the charity, their annual report. So if you take Comfort, for example, you can go on to either Comfort's website or the Charities Commission's website. It will tell you who the trustees are, how much they earn, right, is in the report. And then when these charities transgress, there are reports which you can have access to. In Ghana, we don't have that sophistication with our charities, NGOs. And frankly, unless these NGOs are ones that have been imported, typically they are seen as being owned by the person who set them up. It is my NGO. It is my company.
It is my foundation.
It is my foundation.
So you do what I want.
And I almost do what you want.
And it's your money, really. Most of them, they bankroll these entities.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I set up the NGO to attract funding from a foreign source. Look, I speak as somebody who set up several NGOs.
But you know, it doesn't help that we have, as part of the registration document, the beneficial ownership arrangement. Why should an NGO still have people who are beneficial owners?
It makes a nonsense. It makes a nonsense
of the very nature of the
entity.
But it is required, and you can't say no. You need to feel it.
Yeah, you do have to feel it.
I would want to believe that, you know, in setting up our Companies Act, we looked at ensuring that some of these things that were existing in the past didn't repeat itself. That was why there's the requirements now for your beneficial owner to be known.
Just to declare everything.
To declare everything. However, in applying it to foundations, it's where we must be able to actually create some distinction with that of a profit-oriented organization. Yeah. Because ultimately, the ultimate beneficiary of a foundation is
the charity the public.
But can I register the people?
No. So it should be blank.
If our question is who assumes liability, then you know that through my incorporation documents and writing whoever when I fill that form. But does that make me a beneficial owner? Is there a benefit to me?
No,
I think that should.
So unless it is hinting that yes, even though it's an NGO, there are so it goes
There
to
are benefits.
There are
it goes to-
benefits.
It goes to make my point.
And to an owner.
So-
and that comes back to it's my NGO.
Exactly.
Because
So-
So that's something we should look at in filling that form.
In filling that form,
We-
yeah.
Who is a beneficial owner when it comes to an LBG?
Yeah.
Is it the executive council members? I don't
but
think so.
somehow, because it's a requirement, we still find names there.
Yeah,
and
you
that is
will.
what shows the true power behind the NGO.
Yeah.
Let's go take a listen
Okay.
to some of the comments that
Okay.
we sampled on the streets.
All right.
Okay, what comes to my mind when I hear of a foundation is a foundation can be a one person who can form or create an initiative to help other people in a community, or it can be a group which comes together and cooperates as a team to help other people in the community or in the country.
When I get the chance to create my own foundation, I would focus on helping bring back missing children back to their families, because it's very painful to lose family connection, and that's what I'll do. I would help bring back those lost children to their families.
But if I ever get a chance to start a foundation, I would like to focus more on girl-child education. I know this conversation has gone far, but I still think there are people that think a girl child should just be in the kitchen and not actually go to school. Or probably they think they are supposed to go to school up to a certain level, not further their education. Yes, so I would want to set up a foundation to encourage girl child education.
So it was quite good to hear the young ladies talking about girl child education and missing children, etc., etc. All of those are laudable aims which drive charitable objects.
Kobe, what do you think about the feedback?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that it's commendable that they all know what foundations are. And
Yeah, at
then
least.
everybody has the general concept and is looking at something that betters or empowers people within society. So it's like very good feedback. You're always afraid people are going to ask, what is that? And what is so at least people have noticed the impact of foundations in our society, and they're ready
Because
to
we have a lot.
ready to contribute their part if given the opportunity. Now, the next thing is, how do we get people like this? Not everybody has the endowment, but people have the drive. People have the skill.
Yeah.
People have the time. That's a very important resource to drive some of these foundations. So, yes, it's good that people are out there know what foundations are. And so for the foundations out there, you've heard your audience. Some of the things they spoke about, you are already doing. Let's find ways of roping everybody in, so that in one way we are all contributing to the growth of some foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I sit on a board, an educational board, which is owned a school, an international school, which is owned by a foundation, and that foundation has 4 or 5 other schools, all of them charities apart from the one that I sit on. So foundations are doing a wonderful job in our society.
It's time to go for a break.
Yeah.
So when we come back, let's just take up the disadvantages or the downside.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Please don't go away. This is Slow Express.
Yeah, so for me, we've talked about the benefits. There are a few cons. One of them is the perceived shackles and the guardrails that you have to put. But it's of necessity that you put those guardrails to ensure compliance. All right. If you want a commercial vehicle, go and create a commercial vehicle and stop harassing us with a charity that is masquerading as a charity which wants to be a commercial vehicle. So those shackles are real. And then, of course, straying out of your objects. That's also an issue. Again,
well, the strain comes where you rely on other bigger charities to fund your activities. So you were set up for girl child education.
Yeah.
But then here comes this entity that is interested in boy child education.
and what do you
And
do?
they are willing to fund
Yes.
for you to be busy.
Yeah.
So people just probably just apply, collect
Yeah.
the funds, and
Yeah.
then because they need to work, and
Yeah.
and that's where that comes up, because you do not have your funding secured from
Yeah.
the onset.
That is
You
true.
need to rely on the benevolence of bigger charities to
Charities.
function.
Yeah.
Can we look
Populous.
at setup cost, Kobe, and running cost?
Yes, that's another thing you are going to face. Because you're not generating money, your costs are a bit higher than the ordinary company. You're paying staff, you're buying logistics from wherever, whoever, to be able to continue with this object. You're paying consultants.
And other aspects,
other
lawyers,
experts.
accountants.
Of course,
Council.
they come in and they help you to raise
up.
the
Set
funds.
up. And then imagine you're an NGO that
Yeah.
is doing work in some far off.
The northern part of
Part of
Ghana, for
Ghana.
example. Yeah.
It's not far, that's relative. If you are in the north, that is not far.
Well,
Accra is
true.
far.
Accra is far.
So it depends on where
Depends
you
on
are.
where you're going. But let's say you're
Thanks for that correction.
you're moving. You know, like, and I'll say this. I'm surprised it didn't come to me. But look at Doctors Without Borders.
Yeah.
Imagine flying in from wherever to Ghana, and then you're doing Mepe. After Mepe, you're doing Karachi.
Yeah.
After Karachi, you're driving all the way up
To
toward
Tamale.
Or
Yeah.
you're doing Tumu.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't go there. That cost. That's cost of moving people from all of these places within Ghana, underground. So you're costing.
Isn't it easier to go to Burkina Faso and then drive down?
No.
It's not?
We have direct flights
Yeah.
to Wa, so you can fly into
To
Wa
Wa,
and,
and then you
just drive to
you
whichever
drive to
city
Tumu.
community. You need to explore Ghana. You're so international, you don't even know what's going on here. So probably this time, just sit tight and bring your beef up.
Those are the cons. And then another thing we don't look at is conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As comes with every company.
Yeah.
So, example, I want to create wealth for myself, but I have a good heart. So I want to do both. What do? I have my small consulting firm on the side. I have my NGO on the side. The NGO contracts, I contract myself. Who's checking me?
Yeah. Yeah.
You see,
Yeah.
who's going to check me?
That
to
cancels out your good hearts.
I mean, I can
No,
do
you
good.
can still
I can do good.
do good,
The
yeah.
consultant
Yeah.
will still do good. It doesn't matter the fact that the funds came back to me. But
Yeah.
yes, I still
You're
did the
doing
good.
good to yourself.
No,
Yes.
but let's be careful here. USAID, which is now restricted or has been disbanded, apparently about 60% of the funding was going back into American consulting goods and services. So that's exactly what you're describing here. We give you the money with one hand, and then we take it back with another. So we'll give you consultants who will give you insights and knowledge, tools and skills. You'll buy American goods to distribute, or, if I'm a farmer, I have excess soybeans or grain, I
You
can
make a cereal and donate it.
and donate it, and I get compensated for that. So, yes, we're talking about conflict of interest,
Yeah.
but we shouldn't beat ourselves too hard, because when you look at the reality of so-called cheap funding that is coming into the country in Ghana to foundations, often a significant part comes in and then goes out, or only a minority part of the funding.
Another
comes
way
in.
this comes to play is where, after setting it up, it's only your family members who are the
Beneficial.
staff,
Yeah, well,
and then they are paid very, very
Of
high
course.
rates. They are given the best vehicles, and the actual charitable work you do, it's probably just 5% of your
So I get
overhead.
my son to come and join me as a bishop, or my daughter to come and join me
You're
as
still
a...
on the religious charities. I'm
Because
talking about the
because
secular
those are
ones.
the largest sets of charities we have in the country. No question at all. I mean, by my estimation, more of us go to church on a Sunday than go to school during the week.
Really?
Yeah,
I
all
don't
the
know where
babies.
you got the
Remember,
statistics.
all the babies, all of them go to church when they're not ready for school.
That's an assumption. There's no data to back
There's no
this,
data
so
to back
I'm not
that.
going to
Yeah.
go with
Pure
this.
assumption.
And this is why we need to go for a break for you to cool off. Then when we come back, we can talk about disclosure, privacy issues in relation to foundations.
Yes, okay.
Stay tuned. This is still Law Express.
So another con, or like we call disadvantage of the private with foundations, is the lack of privacy.
Yeah.
You know, you are currently being audited. You are currently having to disclose. Well, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but having to disclose everything that goes on
To stakeholders.
to stakeholders and sometimes even to the general public, because they are the ultimate beneficiaries of whatever you are doing. And so they must know what is happening. And yes, you get that, given how some organizations have been used as money laundering schemes and all
Yeah.
that, there's a need for that level of accountability.
Yeah.
Well, where do we draw the line? Especially when the funding is from internal funds. How are we policing how somebody spends his money? Somebody who set up his own charitable organization.
His own charitable
I
organization.
mean,
exactly. This is
I have played into it, but yes,
This
it must
is
be said.
his
If
own
I am
charitable
funding, if
organization.
I'm funding my own foundation,
He's the beneficial owner.
if I'm funding my own foundation,
And I'm
Yes.
funding it myself.
the endowment is coming from my
Your
own
resources.
private
Okay,
funds.
okay.
Every single month, I'm writing a check
Yeah.
to make sure that
And I choose how it's applied.
and how. But,
What is your business
but
if I'm filing my
because-
returns?
But because of the risk that I may be using it for some ulterior motive,
Yeah.
I have to disclose.
There could be security implications. What exactly are you funding? And the other reason why that whole sunlight must be on your activities is to see that you are really functioning.
I
So
like
that
that
if people
expression,
want
sunlight
to
on your...
support, support what you're doing, they
Yeah.
can see in pictures. They can see in publications that this is what you are doing and you're really living by the word of your
Yeah.
charity.
Yeah.
We have some questions that have come in by way of social media.
Okay.
Let's try to resolve them
All right.
and then we
Okay.
conclude today's
Okay,
conversation.
sure.
I plan to register a charity to assist children in need with educational support. Will the foundation be the best setup for this purpose?
There are gazillion foundations. Sincerely, when you look at compliance, admin, and so on, much better to find a charity with which you gel and make that contribution there, rather than going through this whole chain of setting one up and having admin costs and
But
so
this
on and
is
so
a
forth.
personal decision.
Oh,
They
it's
want to be involved in creating something new. Maybe they want to limit it to a particular community
Yeah.
where the gazillion ones are not
Are
touching
not
just
as
yet.
privileged. Yet. So if you
Okay,
want to,
granted.
if you want to create your foundation, I think the first thing is to look at your object, which you have stated, the name you want to, the people you want to help you run the foundation, because you cannot, I mean, if you're going to incorporate an LBG, you need at least 2 directors. So somebody else must be there, your company secretary must be there. And there are requirements under the Act on who qualifies for these roles. So
Yeah.
You need an accountant,
you need an accountant. So get your
auditor.
get a lawyer, run through this checklist, and then decide on the way you want to go forward with it. Incorporate your company, get your requisite registrations with the non-profit organization secretariat and then the district in which you find yourself, get the requisite certification, and then you can start your missionary work.
Sustainability, sustainability, sustainability. Invariably, so many NGOs are set up. They receive the first tranche of funding or first batch of funding, and then they find that after the project has ended, it is not sustainable.
It's dormant. So
it
now
becomes
they start
dormant.
doing anything.
It's not doing
they
anything.
Get funds for.
So just be very clear that whatever you set up is going to be
Survive.
sustainable and survive for a long time.
What I would add to the sustainability bit is, if you yourself need help,
You are in no
you have no
position
business
to be
setting
helping.
up a foundation.
Oh, but that's the main
It is
reason
not.
why I set up the foundation, because I get to eat from the foundation.
It's not a business. So when
But some
you
of us
want
make
to-
it a business.
When you want to set up,
Yeah.
you should have enough resources to at least put your money where your mouth is.
No.
To encourage others to join hands with you to sustain it.
I've heard that there's money somewhere for lost children, for girl child education, for boy child education. So immediately I go and set up and start trying to access that money. Invariably, it is because I think there's manna coming from heaven to come and save me. And it's very rarely about me wanting to make. I have set several up. Don't get me wrong. But it's, when you look at the numbers, it's very rarely me having a stash of cash and wanting to make a difference. It's almost always a vehicle for either enriching myself
Or employment.
or for employment, for myself.
Let's try to answer the next one.
Yes, please.
I donate annually to a charity run as a foundation. How do I ensure that my funds and those of other contributors are applied judiciously to the purpose of the charity?
So for the people looking to where their funds are, the best thing to do is always to check the returns of the company. You will see where your donations went. They are audited accounts. They should be made available.
Yeah.
You see where your donations went and how they were used. It will come, every audited account will come with expenditure. So you can see. You will not specifically trace your donation, but you can...
Unless it's significant.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless it's significant.
Yeah.
You can trace...
Maybe you're the only donor.
You can trace where the monies went to, which projects went
Yeah.
to. And of course, these NGOs always keep catalogs of whatever they've done, or
Yeah.
to be able to
Yeah.
provide you with one of what they've
Yeah.
done in real time
Yeah.
to show that, in fact, the money did go to the beneficiary community or to the object for which they were set up.
Mm.
So that is one way you can find out
Yeah.
how judiciously run your firm is. And
Another
also,
way here.
you should always check with the NPO's secretariat. They will have, they are supposed to have these details on what the organizations that are registered with them are doing. And so if you think it's not being done, write to the secretariat to write
To the entity, yeah.
entity. And
Isn't
then-
it the better way to withhold your funding? Nobody's forcing you to give the money to the charity.
They want to give. They
And
just
so
want
find
that the right
so,
thing should
so
be
find
done.
so find a legitimate charity and give it to it. And invariably, again, often the larger the charity, the better run they are. And it's normally the international ones.
You are in the mood to just kill all the small mushroom
No, they
NGOs.
just seem like you know. Look, right now we're suffering the menace of electronic waste. We're suffering the menace of
So
second-hand
form
clothing.
an NGO.
No. We're suffering
a foundation.
and invariably you'll find that the electronic waste that is coming in is coming in on the back of old computers, which we are going to reservice and give out one, or broniware with second-hand clothing, which we are going to donate to charities. But when they come, we then sell them on. So we need to be really, I'm not being cynical, but that's the reality I see around
This
me.
is my take on this question.
Go ahead.
Another way to ensure that your money is used properly is to get involved. You can volunteer at the charity. You can find ways to be more active.
Isn't that
such
double
that-
jeopardy? Your money goes and your time goes, and then you find out you're being... and so many people do that.
And
they
that's-
give their Sunday contribution, and then
They volunteer.
they volunteer in the church office, evangelism, and end up being squeezed.
They are just committed to the work of God.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely
What
nothing
I'm
wrong
saying with the non-religious charities,
Yes.
the secular ones,
Yes.
those you're looking into education and all of that, you can get more involved.
Yeah.
Even if it's not giving you time, but you pay attention. You
Yeah.
ask for weekly updates. And most of these charities, because they want you to bring more, they are quick to post their updates.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can look at that and look at the returns.
Yeah.
Check to see where everything is going. And if you're not comfortable, like you said, you find a more credible charity.
Or you go
to
into the
donate
driveway
to.
and look at whether they've got 4x4s all parked there.
Or
Brandon, look, you mentioned Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières,
Oh, my gosh.
etc., etc. You see that these people are doing work. They're putting their lives on the line.
And then who is not doing that?
Those who are driving white Range Rovers.
That's so generic. So if you own a white Range Rover, you're not doing the work.
No. Those who are driving white Range Rovers and run so-called foundations or charities.
I think that with this last attack
We shall go.
in this beef that is never ending, it's time to end the episode.
But sincerely, charities do a wonderful job. Foundations do an absolutely splendid job. I have just highlighted the exception to the rule. Okay, the vast majority of foundations and charities do a splendid, splendid job. And long may they continue, and long may they be encouraged to proliferate.
Viewers, on our discussion today on foundations, I was joined by Theodore Albright.
Yes.
Yeah, on fire today. And Kobna Frimpong Mensah. Gentlemen, thank you for coming through again.
Yeah.
We hope to see you another time. My name is Noella Seidu, and this has been Law Express. Goodbye.